Hey folks, this is Tim Stafford. Just giving you a little heads up. This was we got hit on all sides on this episode. We have construction problems. We got sick kid interruptions, and we had an audio issue right in the middle that I ended up being able to fix, but I didn't know that in real time while we were recording, so you'll hear a couple things repeated just to that were repeated as like a form of insurance to make sure that you guys all got to hear the good stuff that Gombis was bringing. So anyway, there's your disclaimers. Without further ado, here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Voxology podcast. I'm sandwiched by Tim's today.
Oh,
I've got a Gombis and a Stafford. We got the country bracketed. We got Nashville, Louisville, and Auburnville.
that's right.
And so, great job. Gombis, good morning.
What's happening?
Or I guess it's afternoon to you. You're in the Eastern time zone, which is nuts. Nuts. You're only 3 hours for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm spanning time zones. I just got back late last night from Seattle.
Nice.
So it doesn't matter though. I mean, my sleep is all over the place, so who cares?
Even on a normal day, your sleep is all over the place, so who cares?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, the first interview we had with you, it was like, I get up at 3:30 in the morning. I walk for 2 miles. I then eat breakfast and read. It's like, okay, sure. Like you do. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are new to the podcast, the Reverend Dr. Timothy J. Gombis is a Pauline scholar, a substitute teacher, a podcaster, a regular on Christian Mingle, and
Have you been checking out my search history?
So anyway, the good doctor joins us every now and again, and we just adore him. And he has a great podcast called Faith Improvised, a very fine, high quality podcast, as he calls it. So check him out. He's also written some really damn good books, guys. I'm not lying. Power and Weakness, The Drama of Ephesians. Great. Paul, A Guide for the Perplexed. I've got his dissertation on my hard drive. So, I know. It said number of downloads 2.
Yeah.
So it was
I know
great.
all about it.
Yeah, you do. So what's new? Tell us a little bit, because we get questions every now and again about how substitute teaching is going in an elementary school context.
Oh, really? Yeah, it's been fun.
It's usually the questions are accompanied by, is Gombis okay? So yeah. And we're like, we think he is.
The answer to that's pending. But I've been having a lot of fun. I've been having so much fun with elementary school kids. It's been a real blast. Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
I was able to be gym teacher again a couple weeks ago, and then over the last couple weeks, it's been a mix of 3rd grade, 2nd grade, kindergarten, 5th grade, all over the place. Yeah, it's been great.
What do you feel like your wheelhouse is in terms of subject matter? Grade. Okay, wheelhouse, that age, but also subject matter. Because do you get to specialize at that age?
No.
Okay.
No, you're just doing everything. I had, at 5th grade, I've done like social studies, which is like history and stuff like that, which is so fun. I love doing that. I mean, nice. I was a political science major, so whatever they're doing, and an American history buff. So like these 5th graders were doing the Revolutionary War era.
Nice.
So I was like, all right, let's see how well the J-Town 5th grade, class knows American history. So I just pepper them with all kinds of questions and, trick questions, like what number president was Ben Franklin?
Oh, nasty. Nasty. Everyone knows it's 3.
Yeah,
exactly.
How many lanterns did Paul Revere hang in the Old North Church.
Perfect.
That kind of stuff.
Yeah, seven if the British were coming. Smart. I'm smarter than a fifth grader. But we also have big news. You're working on a Romans commentary.
Right.
You've got some other writing projects in the hopper. So never fear. The voice. It's like, Jesus. The kids love Jesus, so it's not surprising that they're a fan of Mr. Gombis. What do you make them call you? I mean, is it a rule? Yeah, they have to call you Mr. Gombis.
No, Mr. G.
Mr. G. The OG.
Yeah. My last name is so uncommon. Yeah. It's just like, I don't want to have to go through how do you pronounce it and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Some kids ask me what's your real name?
Yeah.
And I just tell them I can't disclose that.
Gatorade.
I'm here,
Mr.
on
Gatorade.
assignment from the government. And,
Gator.
That kind of stuff.
Gator. What a pull from Tim Stafford. Gator. That's
I'll use it.
That's a Will Ferrell reference. So well done. But I like that. You're on loan from the government till your regular teacher gets back. I like it. I like it very much. Speaking of political science, I thought today, with zero notice. So Gombis, he just says yes. We never tell him a topic ahead of time. And it's rare that you find a New Testament scholar who is just willing to bat around ideas. And so it's one of the many reasons why we love Dr. G, as they say in the New Testament space. And there, G stands for grenade, as he's throwing thought grenades into the evangelical space. Anyway, I wanted to talk a bit about politics today. Tim and I, Stafford and I, were talking about you yesterday. And as we come up, we have a section, literally, if you look at our weekly agenda, there's a topic heading that just says, is Gombis okay? And we both look at each other, what? Well, we think so. And then check, we move on. But we were talking about, we'd love to talk about a bit of how Paul would see the role of the church in the political life of the state, if at all. We'll get into how it is, because let me set a bit of a table, if we could, for this discussion. So I am a man of the cloth. That cloth is corduroy. And it makes funny noises when I walk down the hall. But besides that, I help to pastor a church, and that church is made up of people who are Republicans and Democrats. It's in the great state of Tennessee, which, as you know, is predominantly Republican with a side dose of insanity at times, and white supremacy. And so we've got a church full of good people, many of whom sincerely disagree over, how to see the partisan space. And I've had people call me out saying, well, unless you're really sticking it to this person or this person, you're not really doing justice and to God's sort of prophetic word into American culture. And we're trying to say, well, I mean, there is a common table. We see tax collectors and zealots at that common table. So the fastest way to grow a church in America is just to pick one political side and run with it biblically. There's no, that'll go. The hardest thing to do, one of the hardest things to do, is to try to actually make room for people who disagree sincerely. So my question, Dr. Gombis, is severalfold. First of all, what would you say? And I realize there's so many differences between the first century and today, but I kind of just am priming the pump for kind of what I'm looking for. How would Paul construe the church? Would he construe the church as a political entity? Secondly, how is it that the politics of the church should differ from the partisan politics of the world? Thirdly, is it ever appropriate for the church to take partisan stances as the church? And then lastly, how is it that we should, or I should be thinking about what discipleship looks like in a political season like this? Deep breath.
Man, that's a lot. Yeah, that's a lot. It's
Yeah. Well, I mean, you had
I think
you had 30 seconds of warning.
I think that the ties between like the first century culture in which Paul envisions the lives of his churches and today's culture is actually there's a lot of similarities. It's not like the first century was safe or politically not active or politically not hot or whatever. So in the first century, there are always other political concerns, movements that are calling for the loyalty of all citizens and therefore calling for the loyalty of people within the church. So, loyalty to Caesar or, say, throughout Judea, Jerusalem, loyalty to this group or that group, imagining that life on earth will be hopeful and promising if this group of people has power, if that group of people has power or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think the same thing is happening in American culture today, where there are a variety of groups. I mean, obviously, most notably, two significant political parties that are offering, ways forward, or we imagine that things will be hopeful and promising if this body of people has power or that body of people has power. So just like in the first century, the loyalty of the church is being called for, and the church is being seduced into loyalty to any kind of group. The same is true in our day, where our loyalties are being seduced. The church is absolutely a political entity. So everything having to do with the Christian way is political, 100%, all the way down to the bottom, totally pervasive. It's a lie to imagine that to be Christian is a reality that has to do with my heart, my affections, my motives, my thought life, and it's a heavenly spiritual reality that only sort of touches earth in the age to come or something like that. It only has to do with my internal world as an individual, and I go to church to kind of hear how I can maintain my internal life. So let's keep politics out of it. The Christian way is political from beginning to end. The Lord Jesus Christ has a political title. He is the Lord over the kingdom of God, which believers inhabit by the Spirit. That's a political reality. The church is the body politic of Jesus. And so the church practices the social embodiment of that and all its political, economic, social realities. I mean, it's thoroughly political, but its politics is the politics of the cross. So we recognize calls to grab for political power as seductions away from the way of Jesus. To have power in this world is the satanic temptation that Satan tempted Jesus with. And of course, Jesus recognizes the voice of Satan when Peter responds to Jesus' statement that they're going to go to the nation's capital and he's going to die, because Peter wants to go to the nation's capital and take over and wield political power and grab it through military might, through a show of strength. And Jesus, goes to the nation's capital and is exalted he's lifted up to the throne over the kingdom of God, which is the cross. And he's hailed by the soldiers and all that kind of stuff. So it's all political. The issue is not whether or not the church is going to be political, but whether it's going to be seduced into practicing the politics of this world. So, Jesus says his kingdom is not of this world. It's not a worldly. It does not have a politics that has a worldly orientation, grabbing for power, grabbing for prestige and sway and impact and all that stuff. It's a politics of service, of love, of clearing space within church communities to welcome the marginalized and the forgotten and the oppressed. It's the politics of Matthew 25, visiting people in prison, clothing the naked, feeding the hungry, giving drink to the thirsty, welcoming foreigners. I mean, that's our politics. So, I mean, it's a politics of advocacy for the weak. It's a politics of speaking to power, speaking prophetic words to the powerful, not against the powerless, which is far more, it's far easier to do that. But speaking prophetic words of rebuke and confrontation when it costs us something, not when, we're going to gain something. Like you said, you can build a big church by having the right kind of rhetoric. Mm-hmm. Well, advocacy for the powerless is a good way to sort of make, church people uncomfortable and maybe have them scatter. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's the church is a completely political entity, and we need to be more politically involved, but to understand what politics is all about. And unfortunately, the way that white, middle class evangelical people understand politics is that the table is set by worldly voices, or we're informed. It's like the table is set for us already. You're either on this side or that side. Mm-hmm. We have not sort of explored the rich terrain of what it means to be Christian, so that we understand what the politics is, or how to be political, which would involve a whole range of alternative practices that are just so underexplored.
So let's press into that a little bit. Let's take the issue of illegal immigration. So let's say I'm convinced that our border is, too permeable, and it's not good for those that are here, good for the poor that are here, whatever. And I make a case that says, I think we should probably have more rigorous border policies. And I do that in the name of Jesus. And then I have another friend who says, no, look at the foreigner, the orphan, and the widow. It's all throughout the Old Testament. What are you talking about? It's the least of these, man. And they're going to quote Bible verses and say, no, we need to take care of anyone who comes here. They're worthy of, they're image bearers and worthy of dignity and honor and respect. So there are preset positions on the border, but how, when both parties, let's say, are advocating using scripture, and saying not just this is my position, but this is the Bible's position, is that a dynamic to be resisted, or is that a dynamic to be encouraged? Do you see what I'm saying? Because yes, I agree with you.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think I see what you're saying. For me, I don't ever assume that when someone says to me, well, this is the biblical position, or I just assume that people who are in conversation about these matters have not explored scripture nearly enough. It's one thing to kind of lift a Bible verse out of a context here or there, but the rich textures of the biblical terrain are just they're so much more subtle, and they don't lend themselves toward any kind of an easy, easy support for this position or that position. So like, if any issue comes to me with preset positions and at a Christian level, Bible verses that back those up, my assumption is I don't accept any of this. I don't accept how things are set. So I would be initially dissatisfied with that. Mm-hmm. What I want to know is, how should Christian communities be thinking of themselves? What's their basic identity as people who are in this world but belong to the world to come? How do we think about property and stuff and all of that? So immediately that reconfigures how you talk in terms of like, should we allow, any of that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Because if I belong to a kingdom that is coming and this world is going to be shaken and I'm hoping in a city to come, and I belong to a city to come, that reconfigures how I think of my stuff, that reconfigures how I think of what we means and our and all that kind of stuff. I also want to think first of, gosh, there are just so many layers to all this kind of stuff. I also want to think first in terms of, I've been thinking about this dynamic in Scripture. Like, as I clear my throat, there's a bunch of passages in the Old Testament and the New Testament where God sort of clears his throat and says, all right, listen, you want to really make me angry, do this. And it's like, those are passages that kind of get my attention, like in 1 Corinthians 11, when he's like, all right, here are other reasons why I'm killing Christians because of how you practice the Lord's table. I'm like, all right, that has my attention. One of those passages for me is Matthew 25, where Jesus basically says, this is the basis on which I'm sending people to hell, in which other people will enter into glory. One of those is, besides clothing the naked, feeding the hungry, visiting people in prison, one of those is welcoming, providing hospitality, clearing space for foreigners. So it's like that is prominent in my imagination. So when I want to start thinking about what should my life look like, what should the community that I'm part of, what should that look like? I should just say that's what I think of first. So I want to think about what are the struggles of immigrants and people who are registered according to this nation's policies. What are our lives like here in Louisville, Kentucky? What are agencies that I can get involved with, and in what ways is my church involved with agencies to help, resettle immigrants, resettle foreigners, and that sort of thing. I want my imagination to go there first, and our church's imagination to go there first. It is the big, what big political parties are saying. Like, what are the Republican Party? What's the Republican Party platform? What's the Democratic Party platform on this and that, on issues of immigration? I only have, I have a say in that takes up about 45 minutes for me every 4 years. So the rhetoric at the national level is almost irrelevant to me. I'm more concerned about local action and political involvement at the local level. And because I'm going to cast a vote, once every 4 years, once every 2 years, and it's going to take me about 45 minutes. Mm-hmm. That's just not political involvement. Do you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And so to me, that's the most anemic way I can be involved in the life of this nation. And it helps me to see what people are caught up in when they have these discussions. So when people have discussions like demonize or berating or fighting with family members and fellow Christians about this national figure or that national figure, I just think these are instances where people have got their imagination so distorted into a non-Christian shape that it's tragic. So when you imagine, I have a friend who has this very strong opinion about immigration. I have this friend who has a very strong opinion about immigration. What's their opinion about? Mm-hmm. What are they upset about? That seems to me to be an issue where church leaders can have, ought to have an effect on how local bodies of believers, local churches, envision what political action even is. Is it to get super angry about what's happening on the national scene? What can you even do about it? What is your anger going to do? Mm-hmm. How is it going to be productive? And then if you are that fired up about things, how does that shape how your community is active in helping the least of these where you are locally? Mm-hmm. So I want to know, like, why do we see things like, so my local church, the people that I'm involved with, do I hear talk like, well, there's not enough to go around. If we let them in, they're going to take blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. They're going to take our jobs. They're going to this, they're going to that. Well, first of all, so many of those things are just uninformed by what are the lives of immigrant communities like in this nation. There's largely a lack of information or, pervasive ignorance. But what I'm most concerned about is, how does that shape our imagination when we go about our days in our local communities? I mean, do we look at people askance? I mean, do we, are our hearts just so small and dried up and shriveled up that we don't see the ways that we could be generous? I mean, the way that Jesus is behaving in the Gospels, and this is what I take to be the critical importance of like the feeding miracles in the Gospels, where Jesus is reshaping the imagination of his followers so that they see that there's more than enough to go around. I mean, that the disciples say, there's not enough here. We don't have enough. Send them away. That's the same sentiment that it seems to me is pretty pervasive among a lot of white Christians that I talk to. There's not enough here, not enough to go around. And Jesus performs this miracle that stems from the reality of the kingdom of God to demonstrate that there's more than enough to go around. So what would our church's imaginations look like if we looked out on the world, if we looked out on our local communities and saw there's more than enough here? We all have plenty. We don't have to live lives of petty grasping and, a refusal to look out on the poor and the needy and see their needs as critical for us to be part of perhaps meeting in some creative ways.
I think that's all really helpful. We've been having a text thread talking about like how to participate or care about or be aware of justice issues and balance mental health, because it can feel really overwhelming most of the time.
Totally.
So we've been having a text thread kind of going through that, because I spin myself out pretty easily looking at global events or even just big events in our country. And so my therapist is like, you don't want to turn a blind eye to things, but at the same time, you have to be healthy with how you participate or be aware of things. But I think that's really good. I think that's helpful for people too, that this idea that
So how do you, well, let's park that there for a second, Tim, because I think that's important. I think that's where a lot of people are caught. So what do we do about that?
I don't know. Well, I think what you just said, it might be it.
Overwhelm.
Like so we've been in a kind of a tussle with our local school board here, and they're making decisions that disenfranchise the kind of lower socioeconomic kids, and they're doing a lot of it under a guise of Christian nationalism kind of things. And they're not even like shying away from that. And so I look at it on a national level, it feels overwhelming, but getting involved at this level is still exhausting, but it is a tangible way to be directly involved in our local community. So that's what I mean, is I think that balance, like I can't fix the border crisis personally. I can't solve the Palestinian-Israel conflict personally. And I feel guilty at times because I feel like my subconscious says that if I don't worry about it, because there are human lives that are involved in all those situations that are being lost. So I feel this weird, what my therapist says, I struggle with false guilt about things. So she's been helping me work through, like, you need to look at things that you're actually guilty about that you can kind of change and move from and repent or whatever. And then false guilt, push it away and label it as what it is, and shame as what it is and put it away. And so I think that's helpful for me. It's helpful to think about focusing on the local level, with tangible, how can I, with my hands and my friends, be effective for those who are marginalized? And so Easter was fun too, because I taught at Vox OC, and I do Easter every year. And so I'm always trying to find a different way to talk about things. And so when I was reading a bunch this year, one of the things that N.T. Wright said was something, I'm pulling it from the back of my brain, but it was like Jesus's response on the cross was so counterintuitive to the time period because it was not retaliatory, right? Like, he didn't call his people to pick up arms and avenge me. He was begging for their forgiveness and then, chatting with the dude next to him who was also being crucified. And it's just a weird, I think we lose that sometimes because Christians in this country keep asking to call up arm or like take up your arms and talking about the Lord's Prayer and how everything's plural in there. And so like you just said, like, we have enough to go around. So give us this day our daily bread. I have my bread. I'm good today. Who doesn't? Who among us is without bread? And it's just, Lord's Prayer just keeps coming up in different scenarios. It's one of my favorite pieces of scripture, just because if any of us were hanging out with Jesus and we're like, whoa, dude, we got God here for a second. Let's, like, what do you want to ask him? So I love that they're like, hey, prayer, this is weird. How do we do it? And it just gives them this short little 20-second thing that's like this. What's next? I love it.
Yeah, I want to go back. First of all, I had Tom Waits's voice in my head earlier.
He's my
favorite. When he was in that Cohen, the short from Buster Scruggs.
The when he's the gold miner.
Pocket. Mr. Pocket. I was on my walk this morning. I'm like, man, I'm old. And I was like, I'm old, but you're older. Anyway, I think it's really critical when we're thinking politically and when we think about our imaginations, because I know what you're talking about with regard to being overwhelmed. And I've thought so much about this since 2016 because I was on Twitter for hours, getting the latest information about the crazy things that were happening. And I began to just feel like I am letting my imagination be captivated by all these big, large things. And all that's happening is I'm being polluted.
Yeah.
My mind is being hijacked. I'm not doing any good for the world. I'm not doing anything. I'm just getting angry and upset and anxious and agitated. And so I've thought a lot about, like, what do I do with my imagination? And I got off Twitter. I'm on social media a whole lot less because, like, when I think about the question, what is happening? What's happening? The way that sort of like the media landscape is oriented is that what is happening is that this political party and that political party are battling. And what's, like, quote unquote, what's happening is stuff at the border. And what's happening are these big national things. But what I've come to see is that I've capitulated control over my imagination to other entities. Yeah. And what I need to think about when I think about the question, what's happening? I need to be thinking about my neighborhood and about the neighborhood that is around my church. And so when we think about, like, well, what's happening in the world, and what ought to inform my imagination, it's far more local. And then I know what you're saying, Tim, about, like, wow, what can I even do? Or I feel overwhelmed and I have a sense of either false guilt or genuine guilt or just a sense of overwhelm. I've thought about this for a while, and I was really encouraged to see that Luke Timothy Johnson in his work on Paul says the same thing. When we imagine action in the world, we cannot think about, I cannot think about me. I'm not like an actor in the world as far as, like, when I think about the politics of Jesus. The basic level of action in the world that's Christian is the church. The church acts in the world. Because there's like, I can't even do anything about immigration in Louisville or in my my district or whatever. But my church can do something. Like we can do something as far as like dealing with the increasing, the worsening problem, and it's going to get worse nationally and globally. The worsening problem of homelessness and hunger and child hunger and people who are experiencing homelessness and who are vulnerable. Like my church can do something. So like, how do we advocate? How does the body politic of Jesus advocate or take action in the world, while also resisting being seduced into some other kind of loyalty? So, I mean, I think there's a lot going on politically. I think that we know too much through social media and media in general.
Yeah.
We know too many facts about what's happening in Israel, Palestine, what's happening in Ukraine, Russia. These are like our imaginations are assaulted by this unrelenting cascade of information that's disconnected, but just comes at us. And because we have, I think, if we give ourselves the benefit of the doubt and say we're well motivated, we care, your heart is fired up with wanting to do something to help. But what can you do? Mm-hmm. You can put a yellow and blue frame around your Facebook picture to show you have solidarity with Ukraine. But like, what does that even mean?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like these things don't mean anything. So I think it's really helpful for me to just really like drill down on that reality that my church, the body politic of Jesus, can take action in the world. And I'm going to be part of as many kind of efforts as possible. When I hear about horrible things happening in Israel, Palestine, I can just grieve and say, Lord, have mercy. When I hear about other atrocities that are so far away, I'm overwhelmed by it, but I also measure how much of my imagination is sort of directed toward those occurrences, and try to focus more locally, and even just recognizing I can do what I can do, but I can't do everything. I'm not going to win every battle, and not every battle is going to be won. But the church is not called to sort of take over and win battles. There's a redemptive dynamic at work when we just do the things that Jesus says to do, regardless of their outcome. And the redemptive dynamic is like our participation in this form of politics is the way that God is renewing us and saving us. So we just do it. We just have advocacy. We just have solidarity with those who suffer, because that's the mode in which salvation takes place, regardless of outcomes. And we hope for good outcomes. We want people to be housed and fed and looked after and taken care of. But we have in this day, and it's been true forever, but I think we have particular challenges with guarding our imaginations and making sure that our hearts are lightened and directed toward joy and goodness and flourishing, even as we're orienting our lives towards service and goodness. It's not all up to us.
Yeah. So
especially the big moves.
I'm worried that we lost some audio so I'm just going to recap what Gombis was responding to.
Did you catch my thing about Tom Waits?
Yeah.
Oh,
Tom Waits,
whoa.
man. Buster Scruggs. Mike, when you got up, I mentioned that we have had like a text thread talking about how to balance mental health with being concerned about issues of justice in the country or the world, and how I have a particularly hard time with finding that balance, and how my therapist has been pushing on getting rid of like identifying false guilt that I have over things and pushing that away, and shame and that kind of stuff. And then also from Easter, like things as Mr. Dr. G was talking about before, one of the things that I read for Easter was N.T. Wright talking about something akin to the idea of how counterintuitive or different it was for the time period that Jesus didn't advocate for retaliation from the cross, that he didn't try to rile up his followers to avenge him or to do anything, but instead he asked for their forgiveness and, spent his time talking to the dude next to him. what that does but how the Christian church has kind of modeled a much different, where we've become, the big church has become kind of take up your arms and let's, fight for this or do that or that or this. But how I struggle with how my therapist talked to me about, like, you don't want to turn a blind eye to what's happening in Gaza or these different things, but at the same time, you can't let it consume you because you're not doing anything other than just spinning yourself out. So trying to find that balance between, and so I think that Gombis was answering a lot of questions that people have, like, how do we get involved? How do we make a difference? And I was telling them about being in this fight with the school board here as they're trying to disenfranchise lower socioeconomic kids under a Christian nationalist rhetoric, that we are doing what we can in our community right now. And that, while it's still tiring, it's tangible. And we're fighting for the least of these in our neighborhoods. And I can't affect on a national level or a global level. But I think that's a really great, I find that very helpful to think about as I try to balance my mental health with everything that's happening in the world, that I can do this here now. And it's great too, what you said, like watching people spin out on being angry on the news or from the pulpit or whatever on these national things. What are they actually doing? I think that's a really good point too, because I just get angry and fed up and spun out myself listening to all these different people say ridiculous things and rile up their
and that's really the only outcome.
Exactly.
The whole outcome is for you to get fired up so that you pay more attention, so that media companies make more money through advertising. So it's not like you're a person doing research and it's grieving you, but ultimately it's going to end up in action.
Right.
Like paying attention to all these, I don't know. I don't want to blame the media because that just, but quote unquote, paying attention to all that's quote unquote going on. Like what's really going on? Really the whole end of it is for us to get so agitated and angry that we end up fighting each other, and we end up just spinning out into, passion, which makes us want to have an outcome and getting into fights with one another. It's really, there's no good outcome.
But so I can hear the voices saying, okay, that's great. That's a statement of privilege. It's easy for a white middle-aged dude to say, yeah. But there are things worth fighting about and being angry over. And when the church doesn't get angry over those things, it seems like it's forsaking its, prophetic role. So then the question becomes, well, which things do you get angry over? And when you get angry over something, and other people are angry in the opposite direction, how do you hold a church together that, makes room for one person who says, listen, abortion is the number one issue. I mean, we are murdering innocents. How can you not see that from the general tenor of Scripture? How could you vote for anyone who permits it? To someone else sitting at the table saying, I know, but the answers aren't coercive control. There are other ways to lower abortions, and both of them are, sitting there quoting the Bible. And both of them will say, man, this is something worth getting angry over. So sort of like only, and I know you're not saying this, Tim, but I just want you to clarify, because I could hear people hear what you're saying, like, well, sure, focus on the good, stay local, fantastic. You don't have to worry about what's going on in Gaza and Israel. But there's also a sense that, well, we do, don't we? I mean, it is awful. And there are way too many voices on social media saying, oh, it's Israel, and so it's fine. Whatever they do is automatically fine. And I know you're not saying that, but how would you explore, some of the counters to what it is that you're sort of advocating for? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It's difficult. I know what you're saying.
And maybe there's just it's
hard
situational.
To anticipate. Like I don't know what I would say to a potential. I guess I'd want to sit down and have a conversation. It's hard to anticipate, like in these kind of settings when you say X.
Yeah.
And then you try to anticipate. Well, what about elemental P? Like we're talking about that, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to say don't worry about like what's happening Israel-Palestine, my approach to those kind of things, or well, actually to just understanding my world, is unplugging from the kind of inputs that that demand immediate reactions and that demand or that call forth all kinds of passionate responses. And by passion, I mean like emotional. Like if I scroll through Twitter, it's like I will see an image of, you know, Ukraine, Russia atrocity, Gaza, you know, what Israel's doing in Gaza, what the Cubs did last night. Here's a cute kitten. Look at this dog. This dog is going to be put down if you don't donate in 5 minutes. Look what happened in Russia. It's like what I'm saying is I want to unplug from the constant cascading of information that is just designed to bewilder me and drive me into a tizzy. What I also want to do is I want to do some deep reading into the history of Israel-Palestine. How did we get here? And what are patient, informed voices saying, and how would they configure things? And what are some hard questions that scramble the hardened positions? What are the voices of input that are unheard, that scramble the scene where it's position A or B? Which is it? Well, that's probably more complex than that. I want to do some more patient research. I want to do some more patient reading on how have we gotten here in all of the abortion fury. How did we get here, and what's a genuine lay of the land? And then, but also, what in our community, like in our church community, given our larger neighborhood and city that we're situated in, what's possible? Like, what's possible for us to do if we all sort of gave more of our time to our community and wanted to do good locally? What's possible? What sort of issue, what needs can we address, knowing that we have to choose one or two because we don't, there's 60 of us. So, what can we do? What's achievable? What's possible? And then,
Right.
And what's going to make us slightly uncomfortable, and how can we get involved in advocacy there? What I want to avoid is gaining, just exposing with regard to just preserving my own mental health. I mean, I'm just addressing that.
Yep.
With regard to that, I want to just take care of myself and make sure I'm getting, rest and right amount of food and a ton of water and moderate exercise. And then I don't want to just I don't want to sit on Twitter for 2 hours and get so fired up about things that are happening at the border, nowhere that I live near, so that I can't do anything actual except the next person I run into, I'm just going to want to fight with them in some way about the border. Like, what's the point? That's not to say I shouldn't learn about immigration. That's not to say I shouldn't find how that is manifested locally in my local community. I'm just talking about preserving my own sense of, keeping myself in a place where I'm a gift to my community, because I don't want to be a jerk that just shows up and just tries to bait people into fight. I mean, I know people like that. They just want to fight. And it's like, all right, look, I don't even know how we disagree, but why are we how did we get here? I have a friend that's like that. It's just like he's just so plugged in to social media, and he has such an agitated soul that there's just like a bomb dropped every time we talk. And I'm like, I think that the way that issue is configured is just stupid. I don't want to address it. I don't know. That's just a dumb question. Or that headline is stupid. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think there are ways for us to preserve our mental health, even as we're growing in compassion and awareness and deep learning. But I mean, if I'm going to be involved fruitfully, I want to know more, and I don't want to just be fired up,
Yeah. No, I totally get that. So let's talk about, let's push this in a little different direction. I love that topic because Tim and I and our another friend of ours wrestle with this a lot. What does loyalty to Jesus look like in practical terms politically? Or maybe even better, what does disloyalty to Jesus look like? So
that's a good question.
Well, thank you. Listen, I just keep asking enough of them and hopefully stumble on one or two.
I would just say, here's one way I think it looks. I think this is one way that disloyalty to Jesus looks like. For me to consider myself a Democrat, or for me to consider myself a Republican, I think is disloyalty.
Say more.
I think.
Let's go. Let's go.
This is how I imagine things. I think that it is my responsibility as a Christian person to have my identity be thoroughly shaped by my being Christian. And so I'm a Christian person, and I want to be prepared so that if somebody of any ethnicity, nationality, party loyalty, whatever, a union member, a country club member, somebody who's a socialist or a communist or a John Bircher, like if they come across my path, I'm prepared to behave in new creation ways and with gentleness, and to unpack that person as a gift and to share from my own richness. But if I consider myself a Republican, I'll always be ready to fight somebody who's not Republican, right? I will imagine that I need to get into defensive postures. When this Republican person or this Republican platform item is attacked, and it's like, So I think disloyalty to Jesus looks like identifying ourselves in any other way than just being Christian.
Yes. Yep. So that's identity. So having any tribal identity that supersedes my identity,
or that's just alongside of it. Any kind of identity at all that is like alongside of being Christian.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, I'm a citizen of Louisville, but that's given to me. I don't camp there or put anything on that or to that. Do you know what I mean? But I think it's really troubling when people identify them. People say, well, I'm more conservative. I don't know. I just don't, whatever they mean by that, that's fine. But for me, I think that would be disloyalty for me. I would not want to do that.
Yeah.
And I think it's highly problematic when we find ourselves in church settings where it's like, well, so-and-so, that guy over there doesn't talk to this guy over here because they're of different different party affiliations.
Yeah.
So inevitably, given how our culture is wired, inevitably those kind of identities poorly affect, they have a negative effect on the life of the church.
Yeah.
If you know that you have people in your church who have split loyalties, that they're syncretistic, that's a problem.
Yeah, and the counter will be, my loyalty to Jesus leads me to the Republican Party. My loyalty to Jesus leads me to the Democratic Party. But that's
I know that's a counter, but that's poor thinking. That's not good thinking. You can't have that. That's an expression of idolatry. It's like there simply is no other earthly way that can be set alongside of the Christian way. So if you really felt like, my loyalty to Jesus is going to lead me to vote, once every 2 years and once every 4 years in this direction or that direction, I can imagine that, but I would never say anything about it out loud. Because if anything gets into the life of the church and has an effect. Okay, so one of the throat clearing passages, 1 Corinthians 3, 16 and 17.
Come on.
That the church is the temple where God's Spirit resides. And if anybody divides the temple, God will destroy that person. So like it's not like, well, that'll have negative effects. Like God will destroy the person who brings about division in the church.
Yeah.
That's one of those passages. It's not like, so if it's Jesus saying, all right, I start killing Christians when this happens. So if you say to me, well, you can understand how somebody would say that. I'm like, well, I can't. I mean, I know people that say that, but I do my best to not run afoul of Jesus's wrath. And so like, when I hear someone say, well, my Christian faith leads me to vote Republican or vote Democrat, I just think you don't understand. I understand Christian identity to some extent. And I just think what I tend to think is, well, A, I don't want to fight. I just want to get out of this dumb conversation. B, you don't understand what it means to be Christian.
Well, you know what they say, when he rolls up his sleeves, he ain't just putting on the Ritz.
There it is. Every time. I want to.
We almost, Nate, when we rebranded the podcast to Voxology, one of the options was, our pod is an awesome pod. This stuff is so good though, because
what happened? Why not? Why? How does that?
We went through a lot of them.
How did that not get chosen?
What if pod was one of us?
Pod save the queen. Yes.
This stuff is good for me though, because I get caught up in like when we are debating things, especially these kind of topics. There are human lives that are being lost while that's happening. Mm-hmm. And so largely I look at my position in this world as somebody who is partnering in restoring humanity. So if that, in whatever the form that looks like, so whether that's in voting for things or just partnering in my local community or whatever. So I think that's where I get spun out, is watching tens of thousands of people dying in different places while we debate the topic. And whether we debate it on a political level or a religious level or any level, there are human lives that are being lost in the process. And I know I can't save those lives. So that's part of what I'm trying to work through. But that's the weight that I feel. Like on these topics, I feel the weight of watching so many humans being erased for somebody else's argument or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's the hard balance for me within that.
Well, I mean, I think there are things that you can do about it. Like, one of the things that we do at our church is to name these realities, to talk about the suffering in Gaza, and to, in times of lament, or there's like in the prayers of the people, there are remembrances of what's happening. I think that those are important. I think it's always possible as the church to investigate possibilities of like, what action can we take?
Yeah.
I mean, we're in places that are far away from where this is happening. What are things we can do? And there very well may be things that we can do, or or as churches to call on local authorities to take action in some way. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just wonder though. I think I see what you're saying, Tim. I see what you're saying. What is troubling though is these things are so immediate. Like the images that we get from so far away are so immediate because they're on my screen in my house.
Right.
But in reality, I wonder what is actually more immediate, like the suffering in my neighborhood, or while I'm so moved by all these images, of Ukrainian towns just getting bombed, what am I missing that's local that we can do something about? Like, where is their suffering, and how can maybe there's suffering that's just as equal, but I'm distracted from actually doing good in the world because I'm attending to these things that are far away.
Right. Just kind of sitting.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Like you get caught in your own little cycle of sadness, or I don't know how you want to phrase
or
that.
Distractedness.
Yeah.
The way that I'd rather say it is my imagination is being hijacked by for-profit companies that are distracting me from actually having an imagination of how I and we can do good here. Because there is good that can be done here.
Yeah.
But we're too busy on Twitter, or I'm too busy watching the nightly news or whatever.
Well, I think that's the balance that I find hard, is looking, you're right, being distracted from where can I see that in my local community and how can I be involved. And instead I'll sit and I just kind of get caught in a cesspool of suffering, like just being overwhelmed by the amount of suffering in the world that I'm doing nothing at all. And that is just that's the, hard work of trying to figure out how to balance all that in a healthy way that is not just me being miserable thinking. And that, I'm sorry, that makes it sound like it's about me, but being caught up in like the overwhelming suffering and then, just and letting that be the end, just sitting in all that murkiness and then being overwhelmed and like, God, where are you? But where am I? I don't know. So it's being human's tough.
It is tough. And and there just aren't many great examples that at least we're aware of churches who do this well together. You know what I mean? It's just easier to sort of fall prey to the partisan politics and be energized around one view of the world, as opposed to discerning and lamenting and reconciling and all the things. So,
yeah, I think that there are a lot. I think of churches that are doing a lot of these kinds of things. They're busier doing the things and not publishing them, and who gets our attention is the loud, angry voices.
Yeah,
and those voices get magnified by, can you believe what crazy thing John Piper said? Oh, let's all spend 2 days just fighting over what stupid thing some angry old man said. It's like, whatever. I don't know. I don't know what we can do about that.
Mm-hmm.
But those are the voices that get amplified and that then dominate, what we talk about, when it's like, there's a lot of ways that we can be involved in our local neighborhoods and towns. And they're creative. I think churches will struggle to get people on board, because I think that people are just far more comfortable with the status quo of it's this party or that party, or you use the word compassion in your sermon. Mm-hmm. What did you mean by that? Are you a closet liberal? I mean,
well, that's the insanity. I mean, that's one of the reasons why so many church folks are either, we've done, very thorough biblical examinations of things like justice. And you'll just have people say, yeah, I'm sorry, it doesn't align with my values.
Totally get it.
So, people are showing up pre-discipled.
Yeah.
And it's hard.
Yes, they have their loyalties have already been decided, and so they cannot bring themselves to be loyal to Jesus. I don't know how else to say it starkly, other than just very starkly. Being called to a biblical vision of things will be an offense to my pre-decided discipleship, and I'm not going to go there.
Yeah, but we will doggone it. 3 middle-aged white men will go anywhere.
Hey, it's worth the effort. It's worth it.
I know. Dude, you're the best. We love you so much. Thank you for, just being willing to think through these things. And you're such a great conversation partner.
I'm looking forward to hanging in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
It's coming. The non-fritz is coming, bro. It's happening. So
I'm looking forward to it.
There will be some hangage. If that's an okay thing to say. I'm not sure.
There won't be blood.
Yeah, there won't be blood. Anyway, love you, dude. Thank you.
All right, fellas. Be well. Hope any of that was usable.
That is so usable. So usable. Absolutely.
All right.
It's a high quality podcast. See you, buddy. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're just going to keep on recording. Tim has a sick kid. I just had a big chair delivered and construction happening at our house. A gas line's being put in.
Just a mess.
It's a mess. So I have no idea how this is going to turn out.
I don't either.
Tim Stafford is a freaking editing genius.
We'll see. This one might take some magic.
It will take some magic. But you know what, man? I am so I love that. The thing I love about Gombis, of many things, I love that he continually reminds me to not encounter things in the form they're presented to us, but to be curious, to be humble, to be patient. And then the second thing that I love is the local bit, I mean, and that's where, I think that as somebody who is working in the context about like an organized local church, that's super helpful, because there are, right. And I don't want to be so, social media present that I'm not present to the real things that are happening.
That's this is obviously, this is such a big struggle for me, as I've said, and hopefully he had some great things there that hopefully didn't get lost in the audio echo land, but
snafu. I'm sorry, I didn't even think of that.
I don't even know why it does it, but there's so much going on. Even in that last part when he was talking about like John Piper, but then I was like, well, all these guys, like they're all these big leaders that have been like either platforming or hiding sexual abusers. And that kind of stuff. Like they need to be, the only reason that anything is happening is because they were called out on a kind of a national level. And so it's like, it's really hard.
Do you hear the hammering?
It's really hard to find that balance of like, this is, we can only fix local, but at the same time, we're seeing when the larger event changes things that need to be brought to light, or I don't know. It's really hard to navigate.
It is. And I'm reminded as you're talking, Tim, I think it was C.S. Lewis. If it's not, it should have been, who said something like, good theology must exist if for no other reason to answer bad theology. And so if you check out totally from the public square, then just the awful sort of wins the day. Just
kind of seceding to,
but I'm still trying to figure out with you how to engage in the public square without virtue signaling, without pride or self-righteousness or demonization or anger. And I still don't have that figured out.
That's a great posture to start with. Just those things like, am I speaking on behalf of my own ego? Am I speaking on behalf of whatever, the virtue signaling, that kind of stuff? Or am I really advocating for the least of these, or people who are really getting the most abuse from the powers that be? Right. So I want to be that person. I want to be healthy in the way I do it. But then, as you and I were talking about yesterday, well, whatever. It's a lot.
It is. And I really do think there's something to personality types on this too, because Gombis and I are both highly 5, meaning we're in our brains, we're thinking through conceptually. You are one of the most compassionate, empathetic people I've ever met. And I'm really glad to not be you. I love being your friend, but I can't imagine the torrent.
Well, that's part of therapy, right? I'm off the charts with empathy. Right. So I'm trying to figure out how that's helpful.
And it's the most beautiful thing ever. And yet I don't know how you not drown in it.
Well, I do drown in it. That's why I'm trying to find this balance.
I need more of it. And so, so all that is to say, I have no doubt there's personality brought into this, spiritual, giftedness or Enneagram or whatever test you want to use. Like, so
those are all demonic.
Anyway,
too.
What's that?
All those tests are demonic too. But you know what? My favorite part of what the Enneagram, and I think I've said this before, is that in studying the other numbers, people who are not what I am, I'm learning. It's like, we always joke around. It's like learning about the love languages once you get married and you're like, oh, wait, what? You experience love different than I experience love? That's wild, because I've just been loving you the way that I experience love. So it's like a, dumb but earth-shattering thing to love my wife the way that she experiences love. And so with the Enneagram, with these kind of topics, is like I'm learning how other people process information, how other people are driven. And that has to be part of the puzzle. Like God made us really like across the board different. And
The Righteous Mind, Bro, is a book you need to get into. I know Kev and I both recommended it, but it has helped me understand where even some disagreements I have with Justina, where we'll see things totally differently. We're actually appealing to different moral bases as we're talking, and we're just not realizing that. And it's been super helpful. So the more I learn, like you, about my wife or about other people, the greater compassion I'm able to have.
Yeah. What's the book called?
Why people.
What was the book called?
It's called The Righteous Mind.
The Righteous Mind.
By Jonathan Haidt, Haidt. And because we have Patreon subscribers who are so generous, please allow Vox to buy that, because that I don't know that I could explain it. It's just when I read it, light bulbs everywhere. And he's just a great Twitter follow. And he just wrote a book called The Anxious Generation, which I just downloaded because, my goodness, that doesn't
sound relevant.
Stuff. Yeah. So yeah, seriously. So all that is to say, my brother, how great is it that you and I get to sit with a tribe of at least dozens of people in the Voxology community? No, it's more than that. We're still shocked by it. And have somebody like Tim Gombis sort of show up. We don't even tell them what the topic is. We're just like, hey, are you available? Sure. Giddy up.
I know if you don't ever watch on YouTube, maybe tune in just for a couple of minutes to see. It's always fun because he doesn't know. And then when the question is posed by Mike, you can actually watch the gears start turning in his head as he looks up and he furrows his brow.
Yeah,
He takes
a deep breath. He takes a very deep breath.
It's very mechanical.
And yeah. It's awesome. Anyway, brothers and sisters, thank you for being so awesome, and thank you for allowing us to be a part of your life. To be continued. We'll keep talking about To Be Human, but there's just so much craziness going on politically. We thought this would be a worthy topic. So, till next time, friends. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to this conversation. The Voxology Podcast is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that is made possible by listeners just like you. If you'd like to partner with us, you can do so at patreon.com/Voxology Podcast or on Tithely, tithe.ly, search Voxology Podcast. You can interact with the hosts on Facebook /Voxology Podcast, or on Instagram at Voxology Podcast, and on Twitter or X, whatever it is, at Mike Erre. Thank you for walking this long road with us.